Anyway, I don't know. I don't have like a bit or anything. We can just get into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. So, as you know, I don't know how to start the podcast yet, so it'll either be what I keep from the first 5 minutes that I've been recording, or something along the lines of, welcome to Late to the Movies. This is a podcast where me, Ben Holt, and my friends get to fill in our movie blind spots. Each week we'll pick a movie that either I or a guest hadn't seen before, and really should have by now. This week, the movie is 1974's Murder on the Orient Express. It's episode number 2 of Whodunit Month, and we're tackling a classic, adapted from a classic, featuring one of the classic sleuths, Hercule Poirot, the Belgian super sleuth himself, who I think is only ever depicted in his 50s or 60s, but is played by somewhere in his 30s, Albert Finney in this one. But, one of the most well thought of the Poirot adaptations, one of the few that Agatha Christie actually liked. But before we get there, my guest, your guest, left to right across your podcast style, we got Anthony.
I'm just waiting for my Amber Moon to kick in, Ben.
He drinks one and then he's dead. Like it seems like
he didn't even drink it.
Yeah, he didn't even get to drink it. It's no good, man. It's fine. I do really want to get to talk about this movie because so often it's a case where, oh, this is the first episode that will be covering this famous actor or director or producer, whatever. And this has, one, we don't do a lot of movies from the 70s. 2, this was a particularly star-studded movie from the 70s,
yeah.
Directed by Sidney Lumet. So a lot of first-timers on the podcast today. But I do want to know, have you watched anything good recently?
Yeah.
Cool.
The documentary Muscles and Mayhem about the American Gladiators was phenomenal. That's on Netflix. I highly recommend. If you watched American Gladiators as a kid, those guys were rock stars. It's like the equivalent of like wrestling and, well, it's reality TV also, wrestling, but it's like a mix of both those worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And just like an amazing nostalgia trip. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
I haven't had a chance to see.
Oh, that's fine.
I
we
tried
just
to
talk about the movie too.
No. Yeah. I also I really want to see Asteroid City. I haven't had a chance to see it yet.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
I heard that in the last podcast.
Yeah. So that's my it's been a 3-step process between these 3 recordings, I guess, where I went like, I think I loved that, but need to roll it around in the old brain tumbler a bit.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm just sort of, unqualified. I love it, but I don't expect everyone to love it. It's not one that I would necessarily like be like, get in the car, grandparents. You're gonna love this. It's tough.
No, but if you like Wes Anderson, it looks like a great film.
It is. I guess my sister told me my aunt and uncle went to see it and they had never seen a Wes Anderson movie before. They just wanted to go to a movie. What's in theaters right now? This looks interesting. And they were like, what is going on?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know if that's where I would start with.
Yeah, you
Wes
can't
Anderson,
start with that. You got to get used to it.
It's fine. Yeah. It's still fine. It's just he's doing more and more of his sort of like nesting doll structural stuff. So but it's really good.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
I've been watching The Bear season 2 on Hulu. Oh, I love it.
I haven't gotten into The Bear yet. Everyone seems to love it. Yeah. I'd like to. It also, everyone says it's really stressful too, which I don't know if I'm necessarily looking for right now.
It's super stressful because my alternate career that I might have told you about at one point. Since 8th grade, I always wanted to be a chef. Yeah. So like that's about as real depiction as you can get. And the few volunteer, internships I did in kitchens during COVID really reminded me of that show. But Jeremy Allen White is just phenomenal in it, and the whole cast is just so good.
That feels like a dude that's going to be like a dude for a while.
If he's not, then something's wrong.
Something's wrong. Yeah, it's just so hard to break through in any meaningful way from. Never mind TV, but just kind of streaming to like do a thing now. I mean, how many people watch Stranger Things and like what's going on with any of those kids?
True. Well, they're going to be in It too, right? Did It 2 already come out?
Several years ago, yeah. and that was it, I guess.
Yeah, that's Phantom Far. That's all I could think of.
But anyway, this isn't a Stranger Things podcast.
But you know what's coming out on Halloween is 5 Nights at Freddy's.
5 Nights at Freddy's?
5 Nights at Freddy's. Yeah.
5 minutes would be a much shorter film.
Yeah, true. 5 Nights at Freddy's, which one of the best movies I've seen in the last 5 years is a film called Willy's Wonderland with Nick Cage, where he says nothing and he fights animatronic robots inhabited by the spirits of serial killers.
Yes.
It's a total ripoff of Five Nights at Freddy's. But now they're going to make this one, and it looks sort of scary, but same sort of goofy slasher. It's the same exact premise. Obviously, the main character has dialogue in it, but I can't wait for that to come out because that was so good.
I remember when it was Willy's Wonderland came out. I haven't seen it, but I've seen a video about it.
Yeah.
And they were talking about clearly they would have had to pay Nick Cage more to have dialogue. Yeah. So
the fact that he even agreed to do that is
he just
not
works.
surprising because Nick Cage is the man. You know what I mean? So
he's always working.
And the last thing, I think it was Vaz who said in the last podcast, he was very disappointed that you didn't keep this month as Water Month. I thought you should have came out hot with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Because who cares? Who cares?
Yeah, well, so the thing I was thinking was okay, we'll change in a couple of weeks. Will anyone even sort of clock that it's an issue? But it just felt
it was like a meteor in the sky. It was a media phenomenon for that 2-week period. Everybody knew what was going to happen. We were just sort of waiting for the train wreck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's sad, of course, but at the same time, it's sad and ridiculous.
Yes. And I don't know. I'm still happy that we did this. I love Whodunit.
Oh, of course.
We'll have to do some wet movies at some point. Yeah, absolutely. One thing I didn't necessarily plan on, and this can be a transition to the movie if I wasn't also going to mention something next, but whatever. One thing I didn't plan on when I changed from Water Month to be we should do something different that isn't related just to, for taste reasons. The first two movies, The Thin Man and this, both set in December.
Oh, true.
Which wasn't necessarily my plan, but we're about as far from the beach, from the ocean as you can get right now. It's fine.
That's a good point. Touche.
To pull it back, though, to give a quick, capsule review of something anyone can go watch because it's free on YouTube that is related to submarines, so it's not a complete cop-out from Water Month. James Cameron's Deep Sea Challenge 3D on YouTube. It's a feature-length documentary about the process by which James Cameron and his team made a submersible that could take him to the Challenger Deep, the lowest part of the ocean, at least as far as we know.
Yep.
And it's pretty good. I threw it on for some background noise. It's an hour, 90 minutes, I think. And I don't know if you're interested more in the science and less of the sensational aspects of that sort of media storm, I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's just on YouTube. So
no, I believe it. I think I've seen clips of when he went to the Titanic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And so this is 3 times deeper than the Titanic.
Yeah, right. Which is insane.
And it's pretty cool submersible they make. It's green. I like that.
Yeah.
And it's always funny because his wife is in Titanic. She's the granddaughter of Rose, who's just in the frame, present day story.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then he ended up marrying her.
Right.
So you just see her. It's been whatever, almost 30 years since Titanic, so she looks older. But I don't know her from any other movie.
Right.
So there's the only 2 things I can remember her from.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Isn't it when he went down to the Titanic? Wasn't that on 9/11? And when they came up, they didn't know that.
So. One of the times he was doing a dive, he came up and Bill Paxton told him.
Yes, that's the story. Yeah, he's one of 2 people that on the planet Earth that were unaware of.
Yeah, right. So there is a weird clip, you can just look it up, of Bill Paxton telling James Cameron that 9/11 happened. He goes, "Jim, worst terrorist attack in history."
That's wild.
So yeah. And I watched the new Indiana Jones movie.
Oh, no way.
Yep.
How was it? I already got mixed reviews.
I thought it was a fun time.
Yeah. Harrison Ford is too old.
He is. So the main issue I have with it is it's too long. So if you watched Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, if you did a rewatch recently like I did, you're this movie's too long. Tighten it up. You're doing too many things. It's getting too weird. Give yourself less time.
Too much Shia LaBeouf.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe take out 20 minutes from that and you have a much tighter movie, maybe less of the stuff we don't like. This movie's a half hour longer.
No way.
Yeah, it's 2.5 and change. It's way too long. And it's the opening sequence, all indie movies have an opening sequence.
Right.
If you've seen the trailers, you know that they're doing de-aging technology. to have Harrison Ford be Indy like in the 40s.
Yep.
With, fighting Nazis.
Yep.
Because you're always wondering, like, what was Indy doing in World War II? So they show you, and the sequence goes on forever. But that is pretty much the only time they're using the de-aging technology. And the rest of it is him being too old.
Yeah.
And he's like retiring from his position at his college. And yeah, that stuff, honestly, it's more interesting. That's the getting into him being too old stuff. I think it's better. Just like lose 20 minutes from that opening sequence. And I think it's like a much tighter movie.
Yeah. So did they set somebody up to be the next Indiana Jones?
Maybe.
Okay. Phoebe
Waller-Bridge, I guess, would be the connection.
Yeah.
She has actually really good chemistry with Harrison Ford. I mean, Harrison Ford's 80 now, but there was a time where it wouldn't be that weird that anyone has good chemistry with Harrison Ford. He's
right, sure.
Harrison Ford.
Right. Yeah.
But she's funny. There's some reviews have said her character's annoying, but I thought it was pretty good.
Are they tying him in to make he's going to be Sean Connery, star of Murder on the Orient Express?
I think they kind of already did that in this movie.
Okay,
he's the godfather of
gotcha.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a lot of the movie is him getting dragged around different places.
Yeah,
it's kind of like Sean Connery in Last Crusade.
Yeah.
But I thought it was pretty good. If this is like the goodbye to this character, which it really feels like it is now, there's nothing like Shia LaBeouf picking up the fedora at the end of Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that.
Okay. One last question.
Yep.
How do you feel about Mission Impossible 7 in a few days?
Weirdly coming out on Monday.
Yeah.
Because they kept pushing it up so Tom Cruise gets more IMAX time before Oppenheimer comes out.
I thought it's July 12th.
21st.
July 21st. Okay.
Yep. So it was going to be a week plus however early it came out before. Now it's coming out on Monday.
Yeah.
I already bought my tickets. So I'm ready.
Oh, nice.
So I'm ready to take the ride.
In IMAX?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna see it in IMAX too, because I made that mistake with Top Gun, just seeing it in a regular theater, but I think IMAX is the way to go.
We got tickets for next Thursday, so I've got a week. I'm going to try and watch them all, which is one almost every night, because this is 7?
7, yeah. I'm on 4.
Okay. And so it's next Thursday night, so I got 7 days.
You're going to need a lot of Amber Moons to
yeah, absolutely. We identified at least 2 really good transitions to talk about the movie.
Yeah, we did.
That we did not take, but whatever.
Is Harrison Ford in Murder on the Orient Express? No.
No. They've made so many
Close.
versions and TV versions, and maybe we can work backwards from John Malkovich weirdly did Poirot for BBC.
Oh, yeah. Called Poirot.
Yeah, I think so. But he's not. I don't think the English people liked him too much. Anyway. Let's talk about 1974's Sidney Lumet directed Murder on the Orient Express, or as the title card says it, Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express.
Originally called Murder on the Calais Coach.
Yes. They say Calais Coach so many more times than they say Orient Express in this movie.
Because they're on the Calais Coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I'm just pointing that out.
Because it's really just the one coach that we're focused on.
Right, yeah.
The rest of the train, everyone's chilling, I guess.
Yeah, nothing happened. Yeah. Nothing to see here.
In one of these coaches, the most dramatic moments of all of these people's lives.
Yep.
Anyway, I mean, it's just a classic mystery. Do you? I want to talk about it a lot, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. I hadn't seen this movie before.
I didn't see the 74 version, but I read the book and I saw the newer version.
I hadn't read the book and I hadn't seen the Branagh version.
You didn't see anything?
No.
Or read anything?
No.
Oh, wow.
I've seen very
This is a real treat for you then.
Yeah, I kind of loved it. I thought it was awesome. I've seen very few Agatha Christie adaptations. It was there's a 30s, I think, and then there were none. Of course, in the movie, it has a different title, but we don't say that one anymore.
Yep.
And I thought that was really good, but it's just sort of, and I'm bringing it back to the movie we're talking about. It's kind of just like, you imagine it's stage actors and it's just, we're going to do it as a play and we're going to record it.
Yeah.
It's on sets and it's on locations, but it's just sort of the way, there's no camera moves. There's no verve to it.
Yeah.
This movie has that.
Right.
And then some. It's well filmed and pretty interesting.
It's excellent. I mean, it's Sidney Lumet, so.
Yeah.
One of the greatest directors of all time.
We shouldn't assume people know 12 Angry Men.
Yep. Did he do Dog Day Afternoon?
Yeah, Dog Day Afternoon. I guess they're probably the main pulls, but tons of stuff. I mean, he's 5-time Academy Award nominee, something like that. Not the only one in this cast.
Right.
This movie is six nominations, 1 win for Ingrid Bergman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, she's in this movie too.
Yeah, which I thought that was odd. I mean, I think her part was great, but she had a small part compared to everybody else.
She did.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason for that. Let's get to it. Let's do a 1-minute plot summary. You got it? Sometimes you have it written out. So.
I have it.
Okay.
You want me to do it? You sure? You didn't see it? I'll digress.
No, I don't write anything down. Mine'll be meandering and boring.
Okay. Here we go. In 1934, the legendary Hercule Poirot boards the Orient Express to return home after solving a case in Istanbul. But there's no rest for Mr. Poirot, as on the train he meets up with James Bond, Ilsa Lund, and legends of the screen, only to learn of a murder of one Mr. Ratchet. 12 stab wounds and 12 passengers on the Calais coach. We watch Poirot deduce the true identity of the 12 passengers as well as Mr. Ratchet, who turns out to be the man responsible for the death of baby Daisy Armstrong.
Hold on 1 second. We're going to be spoiling this movie. Keep going.
Oh, come on.
Keep going.
Much like a jury, 12 and true, they're all connected to Daisy and also knew Ratchet's true identity as Cassetti. However, are they all guilty? As the train pulls away from the snowbank, Senor Poirot must wrestle with his conscience while our 12 passengers toast to a job well done.
Yeah. So we didn't even have a spoiler warning before we did the plot summary in the last
Just
one.
edit it in.
And I might do it so I don't mess up your flow. With the thing,
if you didn't see it by now, it came out in 74. If you didn't see it by now,
there's been multiple options and opportunities.
Yeah. You had 100 years.
So is the Branagh one the same conclusion, or did they change it? Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
The book's a little different.
I know the book has some different characters even.
I don't remember. I read the book a long time ago. I don't remember the specifics, the differences.
I know there's just a different guy instead of Bianchi in the movie that's the owner of the whatever.
Yeah. I think he might be French.
Okay.
In the book, not Italian.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I forgot who at the end of the book, it's either Linda Arden or Mrs. Debenham who confesses to doing solving the whole thing, but he chooses the other option anyway, and he lets them all go, as opposed to giving them the option to which one you're going to pick. I kind
of prefer that it's just an unspoken thing that he's got y'all dead to rights, but this guy really sucks.
Yeah, well, he leaves it up to Signor Bianchi.
So order of, did you read the book first before seeing any adaptation?
I read the book first.
Okay, cool.
I really like crime novels, so I read that. It's rated as her best book. So, and I think it really is, because I also read the ABC Murders, and that one takes a little bit of time to get into, but this one flows right off the bat. You can read it in a day, honestly. Yeah, and her two, Agatha Christie, her two biggest are this and Death on the Nile, seemingly, by reputation at least. So good to know that at least this one's also her best. When you're reading the book, is there a point at which you figured out, this is what's going to happen before the big reveal, or it's more
parts of it? Or
it's more difficult in the book than it is in the film. In the film, you figure it out right away. It's pretty obvious. Yeah.
I wasn't sure that it was everyone, but there was definitely all right, definitely more than one of these people are responsible. And I definitely figured out who, the Countess is obviously the sister of this person. Right. And stuff like that. Yeah. In the book, it takes a little while because you can't see all the characters, right? And you don't see how they interact, and you don't see the murder happen. I feel like visually it helps you piece it together quicker. But as soon as you figure out the first maybe one or two identities of the people, you're like, I get what's going on here. Yeah. The best, to me, the plot twist for a whodunit is the ending. Yeah. When he puts it all together, and then he says, it's really clever. You can we'll go with this random guy who came on the train and escaped on the snowdrift with a fake conductor outfit, or you guys can confess. It's not up to me. It's up to you. It's your conscience, not mine. Yeah. No, I love the ending. Yeah, that's great. The best part. And whatever. We're talking about the ending, so I don't think this is skipping around.
Reverse order, yeah.
It's kind of like, okay, we've already talked about the ending. Are we going to go step by step through the plot? I don't feel like that's really necessary with this movie. it's something like
a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. But I was just gonna say the ending not only is the best part story wise, but I also feel like acting wise for Albert Finney and Poirot, who kind of himself as a character takes a while to kind of get involved.
Yeah.
But once he does, he sort of dominates. And then this, when they're in the cafe car, it's 8 pages of dialogue in the behind the scenes thing that I was watching. Sidney Lumet said he thought it was like around 8 pages of dialogue that he's doing. Wow. And they're doing the reenactments that they're cutting to. But I mean, it's just Finney. He's just pacing the cabin and talking, and it's doing business with moving items around and just talking. And you never question for 1 second, man, why isn't anyone else saying something? Why isn't anyone jumping in? You're like, oh, if I was in there, I'd be utterly rapt. This guy is so fascinating to watch.
The book does an excellent job of portraying how eccentric Poirot is too. And I think Finney nails it, but I like the Kenneth Branagh version better.
Oh,
but okay. I mean, watch it the second time, Finney really grows on you. But the first time I was like, this is kind of weird. Is this guy? Is he doing a fake French accent? What the hell's going on?
Yeah. Well, Albert Finney, I guess we can talk about the characters a little bit, and then let's do plot. And starting with Poirot. Albert Finney, maybe most known to the people likely to listen to this podcast as the groundskeeper that's in the last segment of Skyfall.
Yes, that's him. Yep.
That was his last film role, but he's a leading man in the 60s and 70s and sort of transitioned to character actor.
He's in something else in the 2000s.
He's in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
He never stopped working.
Right.
TV and movies.
But I feel like something that maybe our generation would know. I forgot what it is.
The Bourne movies?
Yeah, he's in the Bourne movies. Yep. And I was thinking of Aaron Brockovich.
Yeah, Aaron Brockovich, the Bourne movies, and but I think was nominated for Best Actor here. So he's the only Poirot actor to be nominated for Best Actor at the Oscars. So well appreciated in its time, this performance. And he's just a weird little guy.
Yeah. Which, if you read the book, it comes off like this guy's a weirdo. He nails it. He nails it. It's down to his mannerisms and everything. It's a perfect visual representation of Hercule Poirot.
He's got like a really nasally, like you said, like seemingly fake accent. Yeah. Maybe that's just how Belgians sound. I've never spoken to one.
Yep.
I've heard Kevin De Bruyne give interviews, but that's it's basically this. Go ahead.
No, keep going. I was going to go off of Finney for a second, but keep going.
Yeah, Finney. I mean, he's great in this movie. I think he's awesome.
I really like his hair. It's
I do too.
They just took that's like shoe polish that they just slicked his hair back with. You know what I mean? I thought that added a great sort of like texture element to him.
I like when he's getting ready for bed and you see that he's like, laying his hair and his mustache has a little like...
Yeah, the hairnet.
Is a very...
We'll get back to that at the end because I got a cool one for my ratings.
Good, I'm glad. Speaking of mustaches, mentioned earlier, this is one of the few Agatha Christie adaptations that Agatha Christie actually thought was good. I wouldn't say she loved it. I think that the way it's phrased most places is she begrudgingly admitted that this one was pretty good. Yeah. She did have a huge problem with his mustache. She thought it should have been better.
Yeah. She said it's more coarse, not as sort of like handlebars slicked up. So the mustache she probably would have liked is Colonel Arbuthnot's, Sean Connery's. He has a very bristly mustache.
He does, yeah. And she complained because she wrote that Poirot has the best mustache in England, and this was a garbage mustache. Yeah. Anyway, it's definitely has nothing on Branagh's version of the mustache, which looks like no one else's, but it's definitely prominent.
Yeah. I feel like Branagh's, the visual effects for Branagh's a little bit better than the 74 version, but they're just working with better material. It's 40 or 50 years later.
So we did a little bit like, here's what Sidney Lumet did, here's what Albert Finney did. There's so many people in this movie, it's impossible really to go through this. The first one that they got, Lumet signed on saying, I don't want to do it if we're just doing, British stage actors and character actors and just making like a small chamber piece. We wanted to have stars and make it glamorous. They wanted to get the first big domino down, and then they thought it'd be a lot easier to get everyone else. And the first big domino was Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Who's worked with Lumet before at this point and since, and in interviews says he loves Sidney Lumet.
Yeah.
And Connery wanted to do it. He loved the scripts.
Yeah.
Thought it was good.
He said something like he was stupidly flattered by Lumet's, wanting him to do this film. And I think Lumet said, I want you on this film because if we get you, then everybody else will just fall right in line.
Absolutely. And that's pretty much what happened. It was the sort of embodiment of there's no small parts, just small actors.
Yeah.
The only one that pushed back, he said, was Ingrid Bergman.
Yeah. She wanted a different role.
Well, not even. She wanted the role that she got.
Oh,
but
you're right. Yeah.
He said, you should do this. And it was the princess character, Dragomirov.
Yep.
Who's like sort of old-timey glamour. And she said, no, I want to do this small part of the weird nanny.
Yeah.
Who has all these tics and all this sort of nervous energy. And Lumet was like, are you sure? It's a much smaller part. And she's like, no, I want to do that. And he's like, okay. And in the interview I was watching, he's like, I just wanted Ingrid Bergman in the movie. She could have been Poirot if that's what she asked for.
Right. And then he did her take in one shot.
Oh,
right.
Nice.
The dialogue, they just had her do the whole thing, and she did it on like the first take, and that was it.
It's Ingrid fucking Bergman.
Yeah. No. Right. You're right.
Lauren Bacall's in this movie.
Yeah.
Just sure, why not?
Yep.
Vanessa Redgrave isn't as prominent then, but it's a mix of these, very bright lights of Hollywood, of golden age Hollywood even.
Yep.
And then super, super talented British stage actors.
Yeah.
A number of people during the shooting of this were starring in productions on the West End.
Yep.
I guess in between shooting days.
Ratchet is Michael Widnick.
Ratchet is the one.
Oh, Richard Widmark.
Widmark, yes.
Yeah, he's did a lot of westerns.
Who said that he signed on just so he could meet the other people?
Yeah, right. Yeah, he seems like that type of guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the American. I just want to meet the Brits.
And I guess this is rundown quick. Anthony Perkins is in this movie. Yeah. Norman Bates himself, being twitchy and having mommy issues.
There's one character. I didn't actually look up the list of who's in this movie before I watched it. And I'm looking at this one character. I'm like, I know who this guy is. I can't place him. Who is he? It's Basil from Austin Powers.
Michael York. This is a couple years after he stars opposite Liza Minnelli in Cabaret, which won Best Picture over Godfather, and might actually deserve it. That movie's fucking awesome, and he's great in it. And this is right in the middle of his run, starring in the pretty prominent Three Musketeers 70s adaptations.
Yeah.
He was D'Artagnan in those. And he took some time out of this. And again, perhaps to people listening, his most prominent role is as Basil Exposition in the Austin Powers films.
I started laughing hysterically. I can't believe that's Basil.
Yep. I wrote, well done, Austin, in my notes. He's good in this too.
Well done, Austin.
It seems like a really good situation. First off, Lumet is considered like an actor's director. They all love working with him, and he has a lot of empathy for what they do. And but it just like, okay, you got like this one showcase scene, just knock it out of the park, and you're golden.
Right. I mean, if I were one of them, I would want to do this movie with him also at that time. This is a true like who's who of an ensemble cast. Like, wicked good.
Seeing a lot of Vanessa Redgrave clips lately of the kind of weirdly simmering chemistry that she has with Tom Cruise in the first Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
And it's her tone in that scene that people are sharing when Tom Cruise is like tied up and there's sort of negotiating is the same tone she has when she's being interviewed by Poirot in this movie.
Yeah.
It's like the same vibe.
Exactly.
Just 25 years apart.
She's just an excellent actress.
Really good.
Yeah.
Yes. She's a dame now, I believe. And, a lot of these people have many Oscar nominations. Some of them have multiple wins.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of star-studded to the nth degree.
Yeah. But I'm surprised Ingrid Bergman... I mean, I'm not surprised that she won for Best Supporting Actress, but it was a smaller part.
I knew that coming in and then was surprised watching the movie because it is a very small part. She's great in it.
Yeah.
But you think Bacall pops a lot more.
Right, yeah. Or the fact that Albert Finney didn't win for Best Actor.
And then I'd be really interested because this, I mean, it is so starry, but you think of the 70s as New Hollywood and all of these innovations happening, that this feels like a very traditional movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it is Lumet, but it still feels really traditional. I should have gone back and looked what else came out in 74 that would have had options. But today, the smaller part that isn't quite as poppy isn't normally what's nominated.
Right.
But there's a different sensibility. I mean, it's 50-ish years ago now.
Yeah.
49, right? So
I think that's also a nod to Ingrid Bergman. Maybe she's getting she's getting up there. Yeah. But she still has that same recognizable face.
Yeah, I think she's nearing 60 or is 60, and same with Lauren Bacall.
Yeah.
Here. Both are great in this movie.
Yeah, no, phenomenal.
Let's do some plot. So Poirot's just on his way back to London. He just solved a big case in Istanbul or Budapest or something.
I think it was Istanbul. Yeah.
Yeah, and
for the Turks.
Yep. And so he's on his way back to London. He's going to get on the Orient Express that'll take him to Calais, or is that just the name of the coach? And then he'll transfer to England somehow. I don't know.
It might go to France and then to England. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Port of Calais is the closest point to England. Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
I love the thing that happens in all of these movies that I don't know who started, but it's a Poirot. It's already an established guy. We don't need a lot of backstory. Just trust that wherever he goes in the world, he has friends and they will get him things.
Yep.
Even though he's a weird little dude.
Everybody already knows who he is. And he is kind of like a curmudgeon-y type of guy, doesn't want to be bothered. He already solved a case. He just wants to go home. And people are bothering him.
He's congested on a ferry going across, but already is collecting a lot of clues just by being observant.
Yeah.
And then when he gets to the hotel, he meets up with his friend, Mr. Bianchi, who owns the company that runs the Orient Express.
Yeah. I got a coach for you.
Yep. Insists that he gets put on it. That's basically what we're doing. You're getting what all of these movies do. You're being introduced to all these characters.
Yep. It is ironic that he insists to be put on a coach with no room.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, here, board up with this guy.
Yeah.
In the top compartment.
Yes. Well, those were the second class ones. They had 2 bunks in those. I just really dug the way that, not to, yada yada, too much of the preamble, but after about 20 minutes, we're on the train.
Yeah.
And the way that it introduces characters at this point is you're seeing one by one them approach the train and get told what coach they're in.
Right.
And my brain's immediately trying to file away. They're making a really specific point to tell you which cabin everyone's in.
Right. Exactly.
Which I really like. They're really laying out who's here. People are being shady. Anthony Perkins is like, it's all set up the way we agreed, right?
Yep.
To the Wagon Lee operator, who's played by Vincent Cassel's dad, who's from, a million French things, but also some of the Ocean's movies.
Oh, yeah.
It bothered me for a while because I was like, I definitely recognize and know everyone else in this movie, but that guy, I recognize his face, and it's like, oh, it's because he has the same face as Vincent Cassel.
Yeah, right.
I just like this format of where you're getting so much groundwork laid, and then it's so propulsive when the music picks up. You get a brief montage of all this different train mechanics springing to life, and we're out. We're on the train.
I really appreciate the throwback. I really appreciate the train and the steam billowing out.
Yep.
It's it's a cool sort of set.
Yep. They're all really uncomfortable that Poirot's there.
Yep. No idea he was coming.
Yes.
No clue.
Everyone's uncomfortable with the idea of him there. It's daytime. You see a number of scenes, people, finding their cabins, people shifting around. But I guess the next big plot relevant thing that happens is in the dining car.
Yeah, when he meets Ratchet.
When he meets Ratchet.
And that's a difference in the book, too. The book, when Ratchet tries to buy his bodyguard service, in the film, he says, my interest in your case is dwindling. But in the book, he says, I don't like your face.
That's even better. Yeah. It was at that point that I was like, I don't know about Finney in this role because he goes really big. The way we've mentioned before that the accent's kind of weird, but it's not just how he's pronouncing things. It's also his delivery.
Yeah.
He's yelling a lot.
Yeah.
Is that a Poirot thing?
It doesn't. It seems the Kenneth Branagh version with the more measured sort of speak.
Yeah.
I think is the way maybe Christie might have intended that character to be.
Yeah.
I think he's just doing an over the top French accent.
Yeah, he's over the top. It's like volume wise over the top doing. It's also dwindling,
right.
And then like the lights.
It's also the 70s, and
Colonel
Arbuthnot has a sort of like this weird aversion to foreigners, and he calls him a foreigner. Maybe they're trying to maybe portray this guy's a foreigner and not welcome among a certain group of people.
Yes. But I guess it is worth noting that Ratchet, despite being this seemingly shady guy, even at this point, he seems shady. And he's American, which is a mark against him amongst this crowd, you'd think.
Right.
He's also the only one that invites Poirot to sit down with him, besides Bianchi, who was a friend from before this.
Yeah.
And Poirot immediately insults him and then he disappears.
Yeah. Well, he says, what do you do in business? What kind of business?
Yep.
Baby food. What does it matter?
Hubbard, who is Lauren Bacall's character, is established in this scene to be obnoxious, and no one really wants to talk to her because she's loud. And you see a few other character dynamics playing out. Some of the people introducing themselves to each other, the butler sort of being aloof.
Yep.
The young couple seems to have some disagreement going on. It's Michael York. It's just good stuff.
Yeah.
Jacqueline Bisset plays his wife. You mentioned before. So I think Jacqueline Bisset is one of Vanessa Redgrave, and I think Michael York are still alive. And I think that's who's still alive in this movie.
That's it.
I'm pretty sure.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess we kind of touched on, but we should mention the actual beginning of the movie is pretty clever. It's a sort of weirdly filmed. Maybe it's just the frame rate is slowed down, or they're doing some effect on the screen. I'm not smart enough to know. Reenactment of a baby being kidnapped from their home.
Yeah.
Amidst newspaper headlines that are there's a freeze frame at certain points of this sequence, and then it's a newspaper headline and it tells you what's happening.
Right.
Essentially, they're just doing the Lindbergh baby kidnapping.
Agatha Christie writes the book based on that exact headline. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe the maid was part of it. All these, the butler was attacked.
Yep.
The father is a famous pilot. His young wife, so distraught. People die from grief afterwards. All this stuff. Just probably something we should mention as we're going into.
Right. That's the main premise for the story.
Yeah. And the baby is Daisy Armstrong. So, I like I don't know if it's foreshadowing, when they go into the tunnel after he says, "My interest in your case is dwindling."
Yeah.
It sounds like a scream at first, but you realize it's just the brakes or the wheels on the train.
Yeah.
All right. There's Poirot's moved to the Pullman's car, and the only other person in there is a Greek doctor, Dr. Constantine, who also seems to just sort of be around.
Yep. There's only 3 people not involved in the murder.
Yep.
Allegedly.
And Dr. Constantine's one of them.
Yep. The good Greek doctor.
There's a lot of things that happen over the course of the night, one of which is Poirot getting ready and really making sure his hair remains just a shell of shine, and including his mustache. And he overhears some voices. You're cutting between the loud train and the quiet interior. And then he hears, after he's been asleep for some amount of time, a man cry out in the middle of the night. Yep. He looks out his door. Yeah.
It sounds like he's really getting stabbed.
Yep, he does. He's super getting stabbed. Poirot looks out into the hallway and sees it's Pierre is the conductor.
Yeah.
Who's assigned to this to the Calais coach.
Yep.
And he is told, don't worry, it's just a nightmare, and so he goes about it. But Poirot is obviously whatever.
But he's told in French.
He's told in French.
And Ratchet has a dialogue with Poirot in the dining car that says he only speaks one language. He doesn't speak any languages.
Yes.
So why would he say something in French if he only speaks one language? That's clue number 1.
Yep. I love how it's giving you bits and pieces of clues and possible motivations and interactions. And here's who was here then. I think he looks up the cart and he sees someone in a shawl with a white shawl with red animals on it.
Yeah.
It's all good stuff. Then the train gets stopped by a snowdrift.
But he says in French, one of my favorite dialogues when he says after all the commotion dies down, he says the silence of death.
That's what he says?
Yeah.
That's the one thing it didn't caption.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, ooh, I don't know what he said. That's great.
That's what he says.
Perfect.
Yep.
He knows what's up.
Yeah, he already knows.
He knows what's up.
He's like, I just want to go home. Damn it.
Yep. In the morning, Mrs. Hubbard is complaining that there was a man in her room, and she says that it was Ratchet. They go to Ratchet's cabin, and he's dead.
He's dead. He had one too many amber moons.
Too many amber moons. He's immediately, Poirot immediately is snapped out of his kind of doddering weird guy, and he immediately snaps into super sleuth mode and is like, he takes over. Don't touch that. Leave that. Get the doctor.
Yep.
Here we go.
Yep. He is born for it.
Yeah. So you cut to see Bianchi is in the dining cart, and he is telling everyone what's going down while Poirot is sending for the doctor and for Bianchi. So they're in there. The three of them are in there. Bianchi starts almost vomiting when they see that Ratchet's been stabbed a bunch of times.
Yep.
And Poirot says, if you have to go whoop whoop, do it outside. Which is like, I don't think that's what anyone's ever called that, but whatever.
And then he asks the Greek doctor to tell him how many.
Yes.
Like, tell me how many stab wounds are there. But he already knows.
Yes.
Because he already knows who did it.
Yep. I love these. And this happens so many times. And I think Rian Johnson sort of picked up on this too.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. This guy knew what was happening the whole time, and he's just playing everyone else.
Right.
And that's all he's doing.
Yep.
He's only confirming. He's not actually finding out anything new when he's interviewing anyone.
Yeah.
Poirot immediately lays out the timeline as he was led to believe it was, which he already knows is probably wrong.
Yeah.
Not probably. He already knows that this isn't what happened, but he says, okay, I heard these yells at 20-1. He heard Ratchet apologize to Pierre. He used his wash basin, and that's the last anyone heard from him. Bianchi asks Poirot to take the case so the police don't have to, and his line doesn't get bad publicity. And they start interviewing people. They start with Anthony Perkins, who is McQueen.
Yeah.
He's very twitchy, very stammery. He shows the death threats.
Yeah. But just to back up a little bit before that, when he's talking to Ratchet in the dining car and he tells him about the letters that he's getting on his death threats, which is why he asked him to be the bodyguard, a scene that I really like is when he takes out the hat box and he puts the burnt note between. He's like, is either Bianchi or I forgot. The doctor says, "Well, what's the mustache wax for?" As if to say, like, why are you gonna do your mustache right now? And he goes, no, it's to heat up the wax, you idiot. You know what I mean? And he puts that between the two hat boxes, and you see the letters that eventually spell out. The whole thing would have been Daisy Armstrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
just a sequence that
he just was like, he immediately was like, I know exactly what I have to do to recover the writing on this burnt piece of letter.
Yeah.
And it's this.
Right.
And I love that, like, as it's about to happen, he's like, remember it quickly.
Yeah.
You only got like 2 seconds to look at this.
Yep.
Anyway, that's just good stuff. Anthony Perkins, I think, is really good in this scene. I maybe start saying that, but just know I feel that about everyone in this movie.
Yeah.
They are good in the scene where they're being interviewed.
It's expertly cast.
The rest of the movie essentially is just these interviews now.
Yeah. And you slowly learn about what each character, who they really are and their connection to Daisy Armstrong.
Yep.
But who's your favorite one?
Ooh.
Who would be your favorite character?
Oh man, I don't know. Of the people who get interviewed here?
Yeah.
I really like the scene with the princess because it's so weird.
Yeah.
And she's like obviously lying, but is also old, so he's not like being too nasty to her.
Yeah.
I do like the Perkins stuff. It's good. I don't know. I guess it's hard to not pick Ingrid Bergman here. She won the Academy Award for the one scene here.
Yeah.
So.
I just love Sean Connery.
I was going to say, I think Connery
just
has
his
a good
interview.
one.
The interview with them is just, I just think it's really good, and he has that line.
His whole vibe is
Yeah.
pretty strong.
Yeah.
Like everyone, despite getting really just one showcase scene, does feel fully realized in an interesting way.
Yep. Yeah. And he has the best quote about I already forgot it. I should have wrote it down. About he's like, oh, what I know about the case, but I don't think he should have been killed. I think it should be a trial by jury.
12 a jury by 12 peers.
Yeah.
Honest and true. Or
honest and true. Yeah. An honest and true system. Yeah.
Yeah. Good and true system.
Yeah.
I think that's good. Yeah. And I love when
he's like, I'm going to put him in jail.
Yeah.
On the rock.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also like the dynamics at play. They're all lying about their attachment to the case, but I love when he basically says, oh, I thought he would have been stronger than that to commit suicide.
Right.
When this is actually someone he really cares about.
Yeah, it's his best friend.
Yeah, and he obviously doesn't probably actually feel that way, and then Poirot gets really right in his face just to kind of get a rise out of him.
Right.
Because he knows he's lying, and he knows that being called on this specific doubt of his best friend's, courage or whatever.
And he also has a double motive because he's not only covering for himself, but he's covering for his lover,
Mrs. Debenham.
Or
Mrs. Debenham.
The secretary.
The secretary, Vanessa Redgrave. It's hard to pick. They're all really good, but I think the Connery one's a standout, especially because he kind of gets two, because he gets to come back for that.
He also has the great line of Mrs. Debenham is not a woman. She is a lady.
Yes. Just like, where we go with this, Sean? It's good stuff. I like that Perkins, McQueen, is immediately one of the few people who's immediately like, yes, I knew that family quite well, and I also hated Ratchet.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the guy treated him like crap.
Yes. Yeah. I don't like this guy, and also I, seemingly was in, a kind of love, or sort of like a puppy love thing.
Yeah. Well, I took it as he was like a motherly figure.
Yes. Right. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. For
whatever reason. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't imagine why I would think Perkins has some sort of issues with a motherly love.
Yeah. Right.
No,
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And he's also an American, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Which does stand out.
Yep.
This is going on back in Ratchet's cabin. They do the paper, like you said before, that lets them know that the true identity of this guy wasn't Ratchet, but instead the kidnapper, or at least the person who organized the kidnapping and murder of
the number 2
Daisy
guy
Armstrong.
Or the number 1 guy.
Right.
The guy that got away.
Yes. The one who didn't have his hands on the person who did get captured and tried for it or whatever. He has a really great line during this scene back in the cabin when he's setting up the thing, or about to say that guy's actually Carcetti. Is it Cassetti? Cassetti, sorry.
Yeah.
Think of The Wire, Carcetti running for mayor. So Cassetti, and his delivery on there are too many clues or something like that.
Right, yeah.
You're like, okay, weird, but cool.
He always has these weird, the way he says things are just so weird.
So even this early, he's kind of tipping to Dr. Constantine and to Bianchi, all right, somebody is totally trying to lead us in a certain direction.
Right.
So this guy's Cassetti. He's not just responsible for the baby's kidnapping and death, but for 5 deaths. And he lays out this person was under suspicion and killed themselves. And then these people, due to grief, did the same. And it's really 5 deaths.
Yep.
And you look at also the staff members that were killed in the process.
Yep.
So they set up in the Pullman's car now. And most of the rest of the interviews take place in the Pullman's car.
Right.
Which is a really classic kind of drawing room type place that these whodunits always get to.
Yeah. But to your point earlier, except for Princess Dragomirov.
Yes. Because of the indifference to her, they go to her coach.
So he's not a savage.
No.
Yeah.
No. That scene's awesome. It's so dark and claustrophobic.
Yeah. She's so old.
She's so old.
Like her mouth like barely moves.
Yes.
I didn't know the driver. I had my own.
Yeah. Mrs. Everybody. They talk to Pierre first, the conductor.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of walk him through. This is one of the first times it transitions into there's someone describing what they were doing, and then it just shows you the scene of what they were doing.
Yeah.
Or at least what they say that they were doing.
Right.
I like that there's a run here of sort of these rapid fires interviews where after each of them, Bianchi says, well, obviously that guy did it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, right.
And the first time Constantine agrees with them after they talk to Pierre.
Yeah.
And Poirot is just basically laughs at them.
Yeah.
And then every other time it's just Bianchi and the doctor tells him he's stupid.
Yeah. But do you think that that's like, again, like the anti sort of immigrant theme?
Maybe.
That, I think maybe a little bit of a slight undertone that this movie has. It's similar to like, maybe it has no relation, but when I saw that, I thought of like the movie Casablanca, where they also make fun of the Italian counterpart to
Sure.
Inspector
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see why, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. Because they just the Italian guy just always yelling and excited, and they kind of make him out to be kind of an idiot. And the same thing with.
To be fair, he's right.
Yeah.
They did all do it.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe
that's what they're playing
maybe that's the undercut at the end.
Yeah.
But that probably is the joke that they're playing on.
Yeah.
And then it's also kind of just like, even in the mid-thousands in Eurotrip, there's like the Italian guy who's just weird.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
On
Goofy,
the train.
aloof. Yeah.
Yes. The guy who just says "scoozy" a lot.
Yeah. Scoozy.
They bring McQueen back in. That's Anthony Perkins. Then they get Beddoes. He's the butler.
Yep.
Gielgud, I want to say. He's one of these, super stage actors.
Yeah. Yep.
And I like his whole thing. It's good.
Yeah. No, he serves as like a typical butler role. He could be the butler from Clue.
Yes. And he was a Batman in the war,
Yep.
which isn't as cool as it sounds.
He was the Caped Crusader
Yeah.
in World War II.
He was basically also just a butler, but in war.
Yeah. Right.
But he
He's
also
still British.
counts as serving.
It's
and
still
he,
British.
It's still, it is still seeing combat and stuff.
Yeah.
It is very British, but like he was assigned to a guy.
But if you serve in the British Army, because they still owned India, then you get a British Batman. But if you serve in the Indian Army, you get an Indian Batman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, which becomes an important point of distinction later. So, Beddoes has a great joke where Ratchet asks him what he's reading, and he asks if it's about sex.
Oh yeah.
And Beddoes responds, "No, it's about 10:30."
Yeah. And Poirot
laughs and laughs.
It's about 10:30.
Yeah. Then he leaves, and Bianchi thinks he did it too.
Yeah.
That's sort of just, I don't want to make it sound too boring because this is all pretty good and they're
Yeah.
doing the reenactments. And
Yeah.
I think it's all good stuff, but it is a lot of this person comes in, says some stuff that's slightly maybe incriminating the way
Yeah.
you look at it. They leave. Bianchi says they did it.
They're all trying to throw Poirot off the
Yeah.
case. And to your point before, Poirot plays along, but nothing gets by Signor Bianchi because he sniffs them all out.
Yep. Hubbard comes in. That's Lauren Bacall.
Yep.
They're really, I feel like they're very, not necessarily rough, but just like very brusque with her, where they're like, all right, lady,
Yeah.
short answers.
Yeah.
Keep it moving.
Yeah.
And he just keeps cutting her off because she does try to give longer answers and they just do not want to hear her talk.
No, he knows.
And she talks about finding the button
Yep.
from the conductor's vest.
She pours out a whole pocketbook. Like, what's this?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it's Olsen, that's Bergman. So it's the Bergman scene. This is the scene that she wins an Academy Award.
Yeah.
It's really good. I don't know what else to say.
Just the whole monologue.
She says brown babies a lot,
Yeah.
like 6 times.
Well, she becomes like a missionary out of the guild.
Yes.
Yeah.
She says she had a sign from God that
Yep.
she should be doing mission work.
Yep.
And seems really nervous. And it's just doesn't speak complete fluent English. It's a really interesting, I think, performance. And Bianchi thinks she did it also.
Yep.
Then the last one that we get through this section of the Pullman's cart is the younger couple, the Count and Countess. That's Michael York and Jacqueline Bisset.
Yep.
They're good.
Yeah. No,
I don't
excellent. And maybe a plot point we looked over is the handkerchief with the H on it.
Yes. He's trying to find who this handkerchief belongs to with an H on it.
So it's pretty obvious. It's not, well, I wouldn't say it's obvious, but you can sort of figure out that they're all in on it.
Yeah.
But the interesting piece to this movie and the way it plays out is how they're involved and the way Poirot figures it all out. Even though he already knows that they're all involved, he doesn't know how they're involved, right? He has no way of knowing who they are in real life. The way he figures it out I think is very clever and very interesting. And it's excellent in the book, the dialogue as he goes through that whole process. And my favorite plot point is the handkerchief, because who knows the Cyrillic alphabet in Russian that the N is really an H.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody knows that. So when you finally realize that, it's like, oh, that takes a lot of time to think of and plot out. And I thought that was excellent.
It really was.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
And like the Greenwood and Grundwald stuff.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's just all good.
Yeah. And I
do like that if you know this stuff that Poirot knows, you could get there too.
Right.
I'm sure there's a lot of other ways to get to the conclusion. But
But Princess Andre?
Yeah.
Countess.
Comtesse.
Yeah. And the way that she erases her name, it's not, her real name is Helena, not Elena.
Yes.
So is this handkerchief hers? And Poirot's like, no. Because Michael York, the Count, he's like, no, she didn't do anything. He's like, no, don't worry. I know it's not her handkerchief.
This is also one of the times that it is most sort of putting on the sauce, where these two characters, when he has her passport and he's like, there's this grease spot that's blocking part of it. And they're just like, it's just cutting to close-ups of each of them sort of nervously like looking at each other.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, well, these people aren't innocent, obviously.
Yeah.
And I guess it's sort of not the point to figure it out since everyone did it.
Yeah.
And Poirot already
By that
knew.
point, you already know too.
Yeah, pretty much. This then goes to, like we said before, the Princess Dagomyrov. She's over in her own cabin.
Yep.
They go there. She's kind of spooky.
Yeah. With her maid.
With her maid. She doesn't get out of bed. She's wearing like, shawls,
black,
and it's black and it's dark in here. And she kind of lays out some of the information, but to Poirot's later point, substantially less information than someone who was the godmother of the mother of the baby who died.
Yep.
She probably wouldn't have known more information. And this is pretty clearly being withholding.
Yeah, and he does that as he's at the end scene when they're all back on the train and they revisit her. She has like one of the longest ones.
Yes.
And they replay her scene all the way and he goes, "C'est impossible."
Yeah. Another kind of funny moment that I don't know is probably supposed to be played for comedy or at least comic effect, where they leave Dagomirov's cabin. He asks Bianchi to go get Sean Connery, Colonel Arbuthnot.
Yeah.
And then he like calmly asks that and then immediately turns and sprints down the cabin towards the maid.
Yep.
And then he's in with the maid in her compartment. They see that the suitcase has been tampered with. A conductor's uniform missing a button is in there. There's a passkey in the pocket. He eventually sort of works out that she knew the maid, who was the person falsely sort of speculated, who ended up dying. She has a picture of her. He gets the picture from her, promising to give it back later, and sort of like traps her linguistically into being like, oh, yes, all my ladies love my cooking.
Yeah,
and she's like, oh, no, I shouldn't have said that.
You must be a good cook,
Yeah.
Because a maid wouldn't have ladies.
Yeah.
Right.
He heads back to his compartment where he finds the red and white sleepwear and laughs maniacally.
Yeah.
Just laughs and laughs and laughs. Then they do the Sean Connery bit. This is really good.
Yeah.
Asking him about Shinoga, India, and suggesting things about Miss Debenham, sort of like kind of riling him up.
Yep.
Calling him out on like questioning
Yeah. Well, he says his wife, he met her because his wife was unfaithful, but it's probably the other way around.
Seemingly, yes.
Yeah.
He's currently in a legal process of divorcing his wife, and so he doesn't want the fact that he's having an affair to get out.
Yeah,
that would weaken his position in court.
Yep.
You're just like, yes, different times.
Yeah.
Of course, that is the right thing to do.
Right.
Like Poirot doesn't question that part at all.
Well, it's really doesn't. It's none of his business. It's not why
I
he's
think,
there.
yeah, it's not why he's there. I don't. I think that there is judgment on him here. I don't think it's letting him off. With
Right,
just,
right, for sure,
cool
for
guy
sure.
pass.
Yep.
And
We're leading up to the most underrated character, Foscarelli.
yes,
Yeah, another stereotype.
they ask him. They ask Connery about his peep cleaner.
Yeah, I'm like, what's a peep? No, it's the clean peeps.
He has to clean peeps.
Oh, is it Easter? I love peeps.
I don't, but yeah, it's off-putting to hear everyone say peep instead of pipe.
But they only say it a few times, then they go back to pipe.
Yeah, I think when Arbuthnot says it, he's kind of making fun of Poirot, maybe.
Yeah, maybe he's trying to take a little dig at his accent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. Then they bring in Debenham, and
Yep.
Arbuthnot wants to stay, and they say no because they're playing him like a fiddle.
Yeah.
But they're going to let him stand over there, so he sees Poirot yelling at Debenham.
Yeah.
Not really. They bring in Debenham. This is Vanessa Redgrave's character.
Yeah.
And it's nice. They have some chemistry too. I love that he starts the interrogation with, "Why do British people insist on hiding their best feelings?"
Yeah.
And she goes, "I don't know."
Yeah.
And she has a better answer than that, but it's really charming.
Yeah.
And then he just is kind of yelling at her and gesticulating wildly, in a place where Arbuthnot can see them through a window,
Right.
to basically get him to get all angry and to
Yep.
storm in.
Yeah.
And it works. Yeah. That's when Connery sort of lays out the divorce proceedings. And he's like, if I tell you this to show that we're not like responsible, you got to promise not to do anything.
Yeah. And he has the another line Arbuthnot has at this time. He says, do you promise that I have your word as a foreigner? He says.
That is weird.
Yeah. Right. That's what I'm saying.
There's something about that.
Because he's very English. Well, he's Scottish.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Foscarelli comes in.
He's,
Yeah.
he's Italian. Must be a car driver. You know what I mean? Those Italians, all they do is drive cars.
He's a naturalized American citizen.
Yep.
He barely gets to talk before Mrs. Hubbard shows up in
Yep.
the window
Yep.
with a seemingly bloody dagger.
Yep.
Um,
Well, he asks him, have you ever been in private service? And he goes, no.
no. There's a moment.
That's it.
Yeah,
No.
That's it. There's a moment here where Poirot comes out and says, in a callback to a Macbeth quote he made earlier,
Yeah.
"Why did you bring the dagger from the place?"
Yeah.
It's one that he yelled a little bit earlier at the princess.
Yeah.
Who didn't know if it was a quote or he was actually asking.
Right.
Seeing that the dagger is in the makeup bag, Poirot asks Hubbard to ask the attendant to set up chairs for the reveal of the solution of the murder. Dun dun dun. In the, I just love when stuff like that happens. When he's like, "I figured it out, and now I'm going to tell everyone. Go set the stage for me."
But right before that, he also presents like, oh, it could have been. It tells Bianchi and the doctor.
Yes.
This could have been some. Well, Foscarelli alleges that it's a mafia hit.
Yes.
So he says, "Oh, this could have been that." And then, since we're stuck in the snowbank, the guy conveniently escaped while the train was stopped.
Yes. And he sends Hubbard off to get that set up and tells Bianchi and Constantine, "All right, this last one will confirm what my thinking is."
Yeah.
And it's Hardman.
He also. Oh yeah, keep going.
Yeah. Hardman, who says, "I'm not what you thought I am. I'm actually a Pinkerton. I was hired as the bodyguard of Ratchet. I guess I'm doing a lousy job."
Yeah.
Poirot doesn't even respond. He just hands him the picture
Yeah.
of the maid who died.
He already knew.
And he's just like, "Well, I guess now I can stop pretending to be anything."
Yep. He just gives up. Some Pinkerton agent he is. Just gives up. Yeah.
He knows
the ruse is up.
that it was Paulette. He used to be a cop, all that stuff.
Yep.
Now we're in the dining cart for the climax.
It's his love interest, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he's in love with her.
Yeah.
Now we're in the dining cart for the climactic reveal. I looked at the timeline and like, there's 32 minutes left. I wonder if this is the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And it is.
It is. Yeah. It's a diatribe.
It legit is.
Yeah.
And it's all along. Well, first, a fairly simple explanation You see Poirot come in. He's setting up the different items, the evidence on a table meticulously. The camera kind of pans up and it's moving around. All our characters are sort of lining the outside of this, and Poirot's pacing the middle as he first lays out the simple explanation. It was a guy, it was a mafia hit. He climbed on. It was a bigger dude, obviously, because the button that we found matches a uniform that we found that was for a very husky person.
Right.
And sure, that's what we could tell the cops. That's the simple explanation. Or there is a more complex one.
Yeah.
And
but
then
Constantine says that's absurd.
Yeah.
It obviously wasn't that. And Poirot says, well, you might want to reconsider that assessment.
Yes.
Momentarily.
Yeah. I have a more
Hold
complex
Hold my amber moon.
I do like that he says, while I'm doing the more complex version, do keep in mind the simple version.
Right. Yeah.
Because he will come back to that. And he lays out everything that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
What actually happened was when he heard those noises at around 1 a.m., it was purposeful distraction. Ratchet had already been knocked out by some poison or sleeping agent that McQueen had put into his drink.
Yep.
McQueen stayed in there. He's the one that made the noises. They waited until Poirot went back to sleep. The person in the shawl was a red herring, all of this stuff. They waited until they thought Poirot was back to sleep. Around 2 a.m., they all got together and did a ritual murder.
Yep. He's in some reason he's in a two-way bunk, coach car or whatever.
Right, yeah. Everyone together, making it a total number of 12.
Yep.
They all take turns stabbing this guy.
Yep. And the alliteration is because they are their own jury, their own 12. Yep.
Yes.
Which was I thought was
of his
another
peers
exactly
found true.
Another cool plot point that I didn't really pick up on the first time I watched it.
Yeah. You find out that all of these people had connections. They were Pierre, the conductor, was the father of Paulette, the maid who Hardman was in love with. Mrs. Hubbard, Lauren Bacall, is actually
Linda Arden,
the one-time famous actress, who was the mother of the woman who was in turn the mother of Daisy Armstrong. All of this stuff. Sean Connery was best friends with Mr. Armstrong. Foscarelli was the car driver for the family. Beddoes was the butler. Ingrid Bergman was the nursemaid for the baby. Yeah, Debenham worked as the secretary there. Everyone was connected.
Yep.
And
the princess was the godmother.
The countess was the sister.
Yep. The count had no connection except being the countess's husband.
Yeah.
That's his only connection.
Yeah. But he wasn't stoked about that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He was just like, you made my wife sad.
Yeah.
I forget exactly what he said.
That's basically the reason. Yeah.
And then and then maybe he's just mad that some rich people died. He's like, you're not allowed to kill rich people.
Yeah, right. But that scene where they're all stabbing him, it's very
blue.
70s. Yeah.
It's like everyone's right down the barrel saying this is for whatever.
Right. There's no blood.
No.
And they stab kind of oddly.
Yes. Everyone has a different version of what they're doing for the stabbing. It's cool though.
Yeah.
Mrs. Hubbard, who we now know as Linda Arden, is watching the whole time.
Yeah. Because she's the maestro of the...
Yes. She's the brains of the op.
Yep.
It's just good.
Yeah.
I love that as Poirot, and I mean, we get there eventually, as Poirot's laying out, here's what actually happened. You're seeing the reenactments.
Yeah.
Every time he's like, here's why I knew you were lying. And then it cuts to the person. It's sort of like a really close angle. It's a very different angle from the first way it was filmed.
Yeah. Usually
sort of tilted and close up or low or high or whatever. And I don't know. It's just really interesting. I just really like this.
Right. And at some point, I forgot who he says it to, but somebody's line he says something like, I think. And Signor Bianchi goes, you think? And he goes, yes, think. We're stuck here in a snowdrift. I have nothing else to do but think.
Yeah.
and why is everybody lying to me when they have clearly nothing to lie about?
Yes.
He almost like, by the end of his whole, figuring everything out, he almost like comes to side with them. It's like, if you didn't just lie to me in the first place, this would have been over a long time ago. I kind of agree with what you guys did.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not supposed to as a detective. That's the way I took it. And that's why the ending of this movie is just truly phenomenal.
I agree. It's like I said before, it's just him laying out this stuff.
Right.
But the way he's modulating, he's
Yeah.
getting louder, softer, more specific, broader,
Yep.
moving around, doing business with his hands, picking stuff up.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just pretty thrilling stuff. And it is just taking place in this one train compartment.
Yeah.
Hard to do, but the way that Lumet's filming it is really interesting too. Like, so there's different angles and the camera is still moving around as Finney is. I like it. Everyone stabbed this guy. This part really did take about 28 minutes, leaving 4 minutes for the train to leave the bank and credits.
Well, the ending is, well, Signor Bianchi, like, what do you think we should do? And Bianchi goes, I think it was the mafioso guy, and he got away.
Everyone toasts.
Yep.
They're all like, "Yay, we got to kill champagne. A guy."
And Abbott says, "Here, here."
Yeah,
Here. That's it. Champagne toast, and
Champagne toast.
Poirot goes off, and he says, "I have to wrestle with the Yugoslavian police as well as my conscience."
I should note they mirror everyone walking in the room to stab Ratchet / Cassetti, with everyone coming up to toast Lauren Bacall's Linda Arden.
Yeah.
As you're seeing some other stuff, as Poirot's like, reclining and going like, yeah, we're cool. Yeah. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's a nice moment that she has toasting with everyone.
Right.
You see like different people are interacting with her differently. There's one moment where, not to skip back, but when he's describing what happened and how Ingrid Bergman's character was involved, I forgot her. Have we said her name? The character name? I forget what it was.
Yeah, I just Mrs. Grunwald.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
She was.
I forgot her first name.
Yeah, she was the Olsen. It's Olsen, right?
Yeah.
She, Mrs. Olsen. She was the nursemaid of the baby, and as Poirot's explaining that, there's like a less than a second cut to the figure of a woman on the ground that's tied to a chair that seemingly has fallen over.
Yeah, right.
And it's sort of like, it wakes you up.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, that's really,
yeah,
really intense all of a sudden.
Yeah,
Really
at that same moment, he says, "You're lucky that you weren't knocked over the head like Beddoes over here, and he let you get away."
Yeah. Just real stuff. You can see like how scarring that would have been for that character.
Yeah.
You actually believe feels like she has to do this stuff as like a kind of penance because she was in charge of the baby and it got kidnapped from its own crib.
She's obviously racked with guilt.
And so when she's going to toast Bacall up at the end, I made it connect back to what we actually were talking about. You see she's still like pretty tentative. She's not she's like the only person that isn't like smiling or happy or content, I guess, is how a lot of them are looking.
Yeah.
Not necessarily celebratory, but more just like relief or satisfaction. And she still looks like pretty messed up.
Yeah, right.
Oh man, good stuff.
It's just an excellent film. I'm glad you picked this one, and we watched it for the podcast, as opposed to the new one, which is like a lot of just like the way movies were made. We would talk about this all the time, but the set designs and the costumes and all that is excellent. And then the new one is really good too, but there's a lot more special effects involved. And I feel like this is just really good actors doing their best work.
Yep. So we mentioned a couple of these before. Bergman wins Academy Award for Supporting Actress. Finney gets a Best Actor, Screenplay, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Original Score, Best Cinematography, and Best Costume Design.
Yeah.
Those all sound right. So yeah, again, this is completely set on a train.
Yeah. And
gets Best Cinematography. So recognized at the time even. It looks awesome.
Yeah.
It just looks awesome. And you like Branagh?
I think Branagh's he's obviously a legendary actor in his own right.
Yep.
His movies missed the mark, but not because of him. It is something else that's missing. Well, Death on the Nile was terrible, and half the actors in it are terrible themselves, right? So it wasn't that good. But there is a 1980, 79 version of Death on the Nile, 78.
Yes, right. Not that long after this movie is another version with a different Poirot, just as many stars, pretty much. I think Maggie Smith's in that one.
Maggie Smith is in that one,
Yeah. And a bunch of other things.
And in the new Murder on Orient Express, Johnny Depp plays Ratchet. And he's not bad in it. He's a believable Ratchet. But most of the others, they're okay. But Kenneth Branagh is very good. And has a different opening scene that sort of sets the stage. That is very good.
Yeah, 78 is that one. Maggie Smith, Angela Lansbury.
That's right.
Betty Davis, Mia Farrow.
Yeah.
David Niven's in it also, Jack Warden. And there's a third Branagh Poirot coming also.
Yeah. Comes out around Halloween.
Okay, Haunting in Venice.
Yep.
Have you read that one?
No.
Okay.
I
don't know really anything about it, except I think Tina Fey's in that one.
She is.
So
the only 2 books I've read were ABC Murders, which is pretty good, and this one, Murder on the Orient Express. And the ABC Murders, the TV show, is pretty good.
The kid from Belfast is in A Haunting in Venice, so I guess he's just going to be a Branagh company player.
Oh, nice.
Going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's Camille Cotton, who I do love. She was on Call My Agent.
Yeah.
And was also very briefly in House of Gucci. Jamie Dornan, Tina Fey.
Oh, nice.
The kid from Belfast. Michelle Yeoh is also in it. So
this one the trailer looked pretty good. I saw the trailer for it because I think it has a more of a suspenseful sort of scary element to it that might help.
Yeah, it's
propel it
coming
a
out in
little bit.
October too, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
But Death on the Nile is just too long.
Yeah.
But in this movie is over 2 hours, but it totally flows right through.
Yes, it's over 2 hours. It's primarily in one train.
Right.
After 20 minutes in, it's on the train.
Yeah.
Until credits.
It never leaves. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's literally stuck in a pile of snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just good. It just makes it a powder keg. You got that tension,
Exactly.
that stuff, the kind of knowing. And so this tells you this, using Ryan Johnson's definition of whodunit.
Yeah.
To differentiate between this Whodunit Month and someday a noir month is in Whodunits. The detective figures it out and either puts it right or figures it out at the end.
Yeah,
sets stuff good.
Yeah,
and in a noir, people's lives are horrible forever.
Right. And I think I might have said this before on previous podcasts, but my favorite TV show of all time is Columbo. Oddly enough, and Detective Columbo, and you can tell how they've just pulled from Hercule Poirot. It's a little different of a setup, but the same sort of, he's kind of this weird guy, kind of aloof. You think really nothing of him. Although he has this sort of...
he's underestimated.
Exactly. This huge reputation. Everybody knows who he is, but they all think he's an idiot.
Yes.
But yeah, he's always one step ahead of everybody else.
Yes.
Yeah.
They underestimate him. He knows a lot more than they think.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what makes those characters great.
For sure. Let's give this one a rating.
Okay.
Every week we'll take our ratings that we give on the podcast and I'll put them up on the Late to the Movies Letterboxd. On a scale of 1 to 5, on any scale of your choosing besides stars, what would you give 1974's Sidney Lumet directed Murder on the Orient Express?
I give this movie 5 mustache hairnets out of 5.
It's a really good one. I'm going to go 4.5 Amber Moons out of 5.
Nice.
It's impossible not to.
I was going to go 5 spotted dicks, but...
That's good too, yeah. I really liked this one.
Yeah, no, this is an excellent
They're really
film.
good. This is fun.
They don't make movies like this anymore.
They don't.
They just really don't.
They don't. They'd have to be like, I mean, we're literally just talked about the Branagh movies.
Yeah.
They're not like this. There's a lot of CGI in Death on the Nile.
Right.
And this one has 0 Johnny Depp in the 1974 version, as opposed to the newer Murder on the Orient
Exactly.
Express.
100%.
And every month we'll pick a question.
Yeah.
To give on each episode. If you listen to the Thin Man episode, you already know it, but so 2 separate parts of the question. What would you rather do? What do you think you'd be better at? Solving a murder or getting away with one?
I'd be terrible at both.
That is where I came down last time, but I'm hoping for,
Okay, I got you.
It's good.
I'd
be worse at getting away with a murder.
I could never get away with a murder. I would collapse in it. 2 seconds.
Terrible liar, and I have a horrible conscience.
I might be okay with solving a murder. I'd be better at solving a murder than I would be getting away with one. Yeah.
If I had help, I could maybe Watson someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's much more difficult than you think.
I could be the Bianchi for somebody's Poirot.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm substantially less rich, but
yes.
If I had something they needed, I could provide it.
Yeah. I could be the Jude Law to somebody's Robert Downey Jr.
There you go.
Probably, but then again, probably not because he's a doctor.
Oh, that's true. I forgot he's a doctor. A couple friends sent me in the like our group chat on Discord. There's someone who looks like me but is a doctor on the Cape, and it's like, oh, that was
nice.
So that's the doctor version of me. I'm the non-doctor version of me.
I like it.
So clearly couldn't be the Watson.
Yeah.
That guy though, that doctor on the Cape, he could have been.
He could be Watson. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for being on. This is a fun one. I really liked this. This isn't even necessarily like a bucket list movie, but just cool thing to throw on.
Yeah, and a good month.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I love these movies.
Yeah.
A little preview. At some point, it might be the next episode, we're going to do Glass Onion, because all my friends, I think you've seen Knives Out.
Yeah.
They've all seen Knives Out, so we'll do Glass Onion.
Yeah.
You can find us on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Podbeans. You can also check our Instagram, long dormant, now back again. It's of course I immediately forgot what the handle is. Instagram.com. You get there to search for podcast. No, that won't work. I think it's late to the movies _podcast. Email Noah at late to the movies at gmail.com. Best thing to do though, late to the movies.fireside.fm. That's the website. It has links to all these places that I forget the URLs for. Aside from that, stay, oh God, I don't know.
Au revoir.
Au revoir. Wait, you said you only spoke one language. Relevant. Thanks, Anthony.